Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom to those who are here and those who are joining us from wherever you may be and are with us online. We are so happy to have you with us. I believe Rabbi Shana will be back from her vacation next Shabbat. We've had a series of teachers sharing words of Torah with us from their own perspectives and their own study. And this week, for better or worse, you've got me. I want to begin by reviewing a couple of the aliyot that we just read from our Torah Scroll so that we can remember what happened. These aliyot 5 and 6 discuss what happens when the Israelites get a new king. For those who would like to follow along with me, if the verses that I'll be talking about are in your Eitz Chaim on page 1092. It's not necessary to follow along, but if you would like to have it in writing in front of you, page 1092 in your red Eitz Chaim, it's chapter 17, verse 14. If, after you have entered the land that Adonai your God has assigned to you, and taken possession of it, and settled in it, you then decide, I will set a king over me, as do all the other nations around me. You shall be free to set a king over yourself, but one chosen by Adonai your God. Be sure to set as a king over yourself one of your own people. You must not set a foreigner over you, one who is not your kinsman. Moreover, he shall not keep too many horses, or send people back to Egypt to add to his horses, since Adonai has warned you, you must never go back that way again. And he shall not have too many wives, lest his heart go astray, nor shall he amass silver and gold to excess. When he is seated on his royal throne, he shall have a copy of this teaching written for him on a scroll by the Levitical priests. Let it remain with him, and let him read in it all of his life, so that he may learn to revere Adonai his God, to observe faithfully every word of this teaching, as well as these laws. Thus, he will not act haughtily toward his fellows, or deviate from the instruction to the right or to the left, to the end that he and his descendants may reign long in the midst of Israel. Our medieval Torah commentators were absolutely fascinated by the part where the king is required to have his own copy of the Torah. This makes sense since the Torah commentators were, of course, in the business of Torah commentary, so this caught their eye. They all agree that when he is seated on his royal throne should be understood as soon as he is seated on his throne. That is to say, if any of us ever becomes the king of Israel, not likely, your first order of business, according to Rashi, Ramban, and so forth, your first order of business as the new king is to get your Torah Scroll situation set up, ASAP. However, the verses that explain how the king is supposed to actually do this are not totally clear. וכתב לו את משנה התורה הזאת על ספר מלפני כהנים הלוויים. When he is seated on his royal throne, he shall have a copy of this teaching written for him on a scroll by the Levitical priests. Let it remain with him, and let him read in it all of his life. How exactly is the king supposed to fulfill this? Most of the commentators agree he needs to have a new Torah scroll made, just part of becoming the king. But is it made for him, or does the king actually have to copy the entire scroll himself? Rashi says, actually, he needs to have two scrolls, one in storage and one that accompanies him on his travels. The translator Onkelos argues that actually Mishneh Torah, the Mishneh Torah that is commanded here, doesn't mean a copy of the Torah at all. It means that there should be discussion or teaching of the Torah, as in Vishinantam levanecha, you shall teach them diligently to your children. And then, what does the next verse mean? Let it remain with him, and let the king read in it all of his life. Ibn Ezra and others observe there are actually two separate things being talked about here. And you can tell this, they say, because there are two different grammatical genders happening. Ibn Ezra says, let it remain with him. The verb remain, v'haitalo, is grammatically feminine, and therefore must refer to haTorah, the teaching, which is grammatically feminine. But let him read in it, literally in him, in the scroll, ha-sefer, which is grammatically masculine. So, let it remain with him is haTorah. Read in it is ha-sefer, the scroll. And Ramban adds, let it remain with him, it being the teaching, haTorah, not the scroll, as shown by the Hebrew. In other words, the king, according to Ramban and most others, the king doesn't have to carry a scroll around wherever he goes. What he does have to do is learn from the scroll and study it and gain understanding of it year after year, little by little. Sound familiar? And then he rises from the scroll and he leaves it in its place and he goes out into the world and acts as the king. And the teaching, haTorah, is what remains with him. Here we see what many of us may intuitively already feel, that the scroll that carries the Torah, the scroll that bears the teaching, is not itself the teaching. Just as the ink and the paper that bears a great novel is not itself the story. Now, our Torah scroll and a novel are not equivalent things. But a great book returns to the shelf and then walks away with us, doesn't it? And the Torah does that too. For almost everyone today, almost all of us, it is a practical reality that the Torah scroll lives here in the synagogue and in thousands of community synagogues, that it is a mitzvah to hear it read, it is our task to learn from it and to live its teachings, to live the mitzvot to the best of our ability, whether or not the scroll happens to be nearby. The scroll reminds us what the teaching is, what the teaching might be. But it is the teaching, haTorah, that remains with each of us through our lives, that we then must interpret and apply ourselves. This order of things was disrupted very suddenly during the pandemic in the form of Cantor Rudy showing up at my doorstep with one of Ner Tamid's Torah Scrolls for our new virtual services that none of us had ever heard of nor planned to have. When I got the knock on the door and there was the chazan standing there with the Torah scroll on my porch, instantly I became aware that this is not normal. This is most unusual to have a Torah scroll walk into a person's home, an average person's home. I will admit, Erica and I were a little freaked out. I'll admit it. We were a little freaked out. How do we make sure that it's safe? How do we show the scroll the honor that we normally show it in our home under these completely unexpected circumstances? What does it mean to give honor to the Torah when it's living in your home? What room should it even be in? After all, although we don't worship the Torah scroll, it is a sacred object, our most sacred object. It is the tree of life. We parade it around, we bow to it, we kiss it, we lift it high in the air, we get really worried about whether it's going to fall down. We have extraordinary protocols about what materials can be used to make a scroll, rules for the scribal process, what to do if an error is discovered in the scroll, or what to do if damage happens. We care deeply for this sefer, for this scroll. These have represented our people with great pride and have remained with us through terrible pain. And they are among the most beautiful of the Jewish arts, carrying our language and our culture and holding the teaching safe inside for us to find it whenever we are open to it. As most of you know, my role here at Ner Tamid is a very fortunate one. I am the Bal Koreh, the Torah reading, the reading person. It's not a very common job, and jobs like it are becoming less common by the day. My job is to learn this text that is in this scroll really well. I don't completely memorize it, that's not the goal, but it does involve a lot of memorization and a lot of repetition in order to try to do it well. Many professions don't ask for memorization anymore. They don't ask for that kind of repetition anymore. We have computers now that can do certain things. I am so proud to be in this role and appreciative of what it offers, which is the chance to know this sefer and this teaching very deeply and in a very particular kind of way. When I thought about the questions of the king and his new Torah scroll, it helped me put some words to another aspect of how precious this opportunity is that I have here with you each week. To be part of taking out the scroll, the sefer, and receiving the Torah and finding the teaching in it together. The voice of the words is usually mine, but I am also receiving these words along with all of us who are here together. I feel whatever they bring us: intrigue, comfort, confusion, courage, upliftment, sometimes pain or shame. Many of us have likely felt that. When the scroll comes out, it's like a little bit of magic just goes up in the room. Little bit of excitement, here it comes. When we take out a scroll from the ark and we honor it to the very best of our abilities, and then we open it and we begin to read, and it becomes before our eyes much more than a scroll. It's no longer just HaSefer, it is HaTorah. It is not just the scroll of the teaching, it is the teaching. The moment a community of human beings starts to read. I thank God today for another Shabbat morning, for the living communities of our people all around this world who are opening our scrolls today and who are anticipating, who are getting ourselves ready for the many forms of teaching, the forms of Torah that may arise from it. May our gathering here today send us out ready to live our sacred teachings. Ki lekach tov natati lachem, for it is a good teaching that we have been given. Let us declare the greatness of our God and grant honor to the Torah. Shabbat Shalom.